All right. So, welcome to the Engaging Girls in STEM. This is our featured speaker event. We are so proud to have Linh Dang from Northrop Grumman represent the company, the organization, as well as being yet another famous and STEM ambassador for us for the 2022 school year. I want to make sure that we also thank uh, our following. We want to thank our partners, the Natural History Museum, who's putting on a City Nature Challenge, April 29th through May 2nd. So you can go to nhn.org to check out their website. We also want to make sure that you are also aware of the City of STEM. Every day in the month of April, there's something going on in the city of LA. Please check out the cityofstem.org to find out what might be going on in your area or close by to you. We also want to thank again all of our advisory members from the California Science Center, Natural History Museum, LA, NASA JPL, and of course our go-to folks right now are Northrop Grumman. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Cassie Roby, who is one of our advisory committee members and also a great ambassador herself.
Thanks, Anthony. So my name is Cassie Roby. I currently work for Northrop Grumman as well. I am a space thermal engineer for the ARIS program. I also work a little bit for NASA doing flight operations for the James Webb Space Telescope, which Northrop Grumman was the primary contractor on, and that recently launched back in December of 21. But I am, oh, and I'm also Miss Los Angeles County. How could I forget? I'm wearing a sash and a crown, and I literally forgot. So yes, I am the reigning Miss Los Angeles County, and I have my own program called Space Girls, where I advocate to get more young women into STEM. And I am so excited to announce and bring to you guys our featured speaker, Linh Dang, who is the director of programs, including my program, ARIS, that I work on at Northrop Grumman. And so I just want to thank you for having me, and you're free to share your screen, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
All right, Lynn. And just to let you know, folks, I'm going to put in the chat box. If you haven't already done that, if you have a question for Lynn, you can put it into the Google form that was sent to you in an email earlier today.
All right, are you guys able to see my screen? Good evening, everybody.
Yes, we can see it, but it's a little echoey.
Oh, okay, hold on one second. Let's see, I think I have two speakers on.
Oh no, the share screen was fine, but I think you need to like you have to pick the sound from one, either your phone or your computer, one or the other. So now we can't hear you. So unmute your phone.
Okay, so I did that.
Now turn the computer sound off. So like turn it all, not yourself, mute it, but like the actual volume from the computer.
All right, is it a lot better? Is this a lot better?
It's the same. I think it's okay though. You want to go ahead and share your screen still. It's complicated.
Okay, so maybe I should turn off the sound from my phone.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's much better. Yes.
That is much better?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so are we good now?
Yes, all good to go.
All right. Thank you for bearing with me to figure this out. As I was sharing with Anthony and Cassie, that I actually work in a classified area for a very important national program for national security. So being on the opens and being with you guys in the evening, this evening is a treat for me. Just a little bit about myself. So I'm actually a 3 times Bruins. I got my engineering degree from UCLA. I studied it chemical engineering there. And then also I got a master in material science and engineering at UCLA as well. Instead of going back to a PhD, I actually decided to get an MBA. So Northrop Grumman have been very supportive of my education and actually paid it for my master's and also my MBA. So I'm actually really grateful for the company to do so, or I wouldn't be able to continue with my higher education. So right now I'm actually the directors for Northrop Grumman manage a portfolio of classified programs. So is really building, I would say, that really complex system that is to preserve our freedoms, and then at the same time helping the warfighters in the field to be able for them to fight for us and to be able to protect America. For me, because of my background, I always wanted to be part of like joining the militaries or the Navy, because really the US government actually helped my sister and I to have an education. I was a refugee from Vietnam. So I felt that, the next best thing was that, working for a defense company. So my thing is that, if I cannot wear the uniform to go help fight a war, that I could use my brains and my knowledge in science and technology to be able to do so. So I actually wanted to share with you some of my story and how I actually get to where I am today. So I was actually born shortly after the fall of Saigon in Vietnam after 1975. And my parents was really wealthy back in Vietnam. And overnight, they lost everything. And they were placed into what is working camps. And we actually got our citizenship away. So very, with the war going in Ukraine. So that's kind of like what I really resonated with. So two of my uncles escaped by boat. One of them got rescued to go to Taiwan, and then the other got rescued and then came to America. And they sponsored us to come to the US. And I actually came to the US when I was like 11 years old. And I actually do not really know how to read and write. And I actually started junior high school without knowing how to read and write. And then I was very like struggling with school. And then also my family was actually on welfare. So there was like during a period of my life that I was really struggling of how do I even being successful, right? How do I even catch up with 6 years of English with missing elementary school through all this time? And then I don't think, I would have a future. And one thing that actually event in my life that turned things around was that, my father was taking various jobs, as a butcher, as a liquor clerk's, at the liquor clerk, work at a liquor store. And one night, there was a robber that came in and, point a gun at my father's head and demanded that, he gave them the money. And his partners is next to him. And he said no. And no meaning that I don't really know where the monies are. And so with that linguistic mistake of saying no, that he actually got shot. And my father came home the next day with blood all over him. And I think at that point, it was the turning point of my life that it is what drive me to really trying to get my family out of poverty, rather than really focusing on, I cannot do it. And with all the things that I don't have. So I really study hard and was able to get into every university that I applied it for. So this was really a huge achievement. And the reason that I selected engineering is really that I was going down a list of engineering degrees, and then chemical engineering came out to be the highest pay. And then at the same time, I was very good in chemistry. So I thought that would be a very good measure for me to get my family out of poverty. And then at the same time, being independent and being able to support my family at the same time work. And I, after college, I actually interviewed it with, various company. I selected Northrop Grumman because it was actually known for its research and development. So I actually started my career in Redondo Beach, California. And the location that I started in is a location that actually is very similar to Intel, that you actually have to wear, your bunny suit and be able to go in and then manufacturing, what is microelectronics. One thing that I like to share is that it is from that location that we actually revolutionized the cell phone industry. You're probably too young to remember, or probably more like see it in movies, that in the 80s or 90s, there's this brick phone, right? That is like really large. Then it is actually from the microelectronic or the semiconductor chip from that foundry that's able to shrink the size of all the electronic in the cell phone. And then now any variants of the cell phone actually have some components of what was developed in this facility. So I was very, very proud of that. And this is why I'm like, okay, then I would love to be part of that team. So I actually spent 8 years doing research and development in that facility, working along with, many PhD and trying to figure it out, what is the next like electronics that we could actually put into space. And then afterwards, I actually went into electronic manufacturing and then learned about, how to actually putting together complex system. And then I think it was mentioned earlier that, some of the things that we could talk about is really, how to build the James Webb Telescope. And then how do we actually build Here's showing a picture that I have here of a advanced satellite system that help our troop communicates. Is actually called advanced CHF. So I got into what is system engineering that actually teach you how to take really complex design of a system that what our customer would want and be able to decompose that to smaller requirements that you could actually figure it out how to build each of the components at the lower level. And then afterwards, how do you actually go and then verify and test the components and then put the complex system together? So that is what is system engineering. After spending some time there, I actually got into, and then here just showing that, my career at Northrop Grumman's of the various project that I work on. And then I think the proudest moment was that I was part of a team that was able to develop the fourth fastest transistor, and then being able to get into the Guinness World Record in 2007. And this transistor run at a terahertz, right? If you look at, some of the computer on your chips, those are like 2 to 3 gigahertz. So it is a fast transistor that actually allows you to be able to communicate, with space, with our satellites in space. So that's why you need a fast transistor for. Then after being in system engineering, I actually went into program management. And then that is the point when, I could marry, having a very strong foundation in engineering, in the technical piece of it, throughout the years that I spent working on doing analysis, actually doing research and development, and then go into program management, figuring out, what does our customer want, and then how do we actually design and then develop products that would meet our customer needs. So since then, it's been a really rewarding career that, I have, engineers that work for me, and then also program manager, but always the foundation is in engineering, that it teaches you how to actually be able to think critically, that no matter what job that you get into, you have the foundation to be able to figure out how to solve those problems. So I wanted to save some time to be kind of interactive. So I wanted to kind of point out, all the lessons learned, throughout my career and to my life. I think one of the lessons that I learned that I want to share is that, continuous learning and education are the best investment in yourself. And then I think many of you are in high school and then thinking about going to college, and then what degree to major in. And personally, what with my family going through of losing everything overnight and being able to pick myself up is always through education, because I learned that, you could lose everything that is external, but whatever that you learn, that your knowledge in your brain, that nobody's could take away that. And so I always, like, even now that I'm always interested in watching TED Talks, attending, engineering lectures and continuing to educate myself and, really being able to be top notch in this field. And the other lesson that I learned is that try to figure it out, how do you actually convert your disadvantage to an advantage, right? So I really love this quote from Richard Branson. He said, having dyslexias have enabled me to look at and think about things differently, right? So for me, English is not my first language. As you could see that, I still not a fluent English speaker. I am still struggling with the language. English is a illogical language to me, with all the grammars, rules, and everything. And then I prevent that from making me being able to be successful in my career, right? So I actually having learning that I have, of one of my disadvantage. So I actually, take voice lesson, for example, in my spare time to figure out how to enunciate better. And at the same time, that kind of helped me to, if I have to think about something, it slowed me down for me to actually formulate a concept and be able for me to share things succinctly when I present to my customer. And do not like let, what you perceive as your disadvantage, to hold you back. That's the second lesson that I learned in life. And then the third one is like, you need to really be comfortable with yourself, because confidence is all about being confident with yourself, and how you carry yourself, how people perceive you is really just that you having that confidence. But in order to gain that confidence, you have to be comfortable with who you are. I think, like I am an Asian petite woman, not standing at 5 feet tall. And I am in my customers and in the engineering field, I would say that it is mainly, male dominated, that are, different than I am. So I always feel that when I first started my careers of feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that. And then also that, when I first started my career, that I felt that all these people are smarter than me because they have a PhD in their field. So that lack of being comfortable in the situations actually hold me back. And I overcome that by actually being comfortable with who I am. And then at the same time, like when I meet with customers and at meetings, I usually prepare so that I am going into knowing my material and be able to have a dialogue. So no matter what question that comes up, I'm able to answer it and be prepared to do so. And I think that is one of the things that I have to actually learn over the year. And then the other lesson that I learned is really that you have to develop a resilient mindset to deal with setback. So there's a lot of the times, through our life and to our career that unfortunate events happen. Is not a matter of that the events happen. To me, is a matters of how did it let it affect you, and then how well that you're able to pick yourself up. So one thing that I learned is that, whatever hardship that you go through, or, for example, if you have a breakup with a boyfriend, or, an argument with your parents, that, I just realized that, don't think that it is going to last forever. It's only it is impermanent. It is just a short period of time. And also, like when you have a failure that, with work, that something didn't work out, it's not gonna, the sadness and the pain, and it's not gonna last forever. So So this is how you go about and then develop a resilient mindset so that you have the amplitude to be able to go and then achieve the next great things, right? And I think this is really similar to also that, with exercising as well, right? So that you would be able to build up slowly, to get into much more of, if you want to run fast, to be able to build it up over time. So it's the same thing of developing that resilient mindset that you were able to build up over time. And then I would say that the last thing that to me is that, if you actually want something badly, it's just a matter of what you're willing to sacrifice to make it happen. And then given my background of not knowing how to read and write, and I know what it takes to be able to overcome that. And then I started my careers, it's actually, I was a chemical engine in chemical engineering. And to understand how complex system works, I actually have to go back to school to supplement that, because my master didn't help me that much, because it was in material science. And I actually took some of like extension course at UCLA and then at UCI to be able to supplement that, so that I could, learn about complex system that is in a different area. So the foundations of engineering is really just teaching you the critical skill to be able to learn and having the critical thinking to learn any subject in the future, that if you decided to switch career or do something different. So I think really the important part is that whether you're willing to put in the hard work and the time to be able to get to the next level, I would say that. So that's happened kind of what at different point of my career, when I have to be able to take myself to the next level, I tend to step back and be prepared and figuring out what is the grand plan in order to do so. And again, engineering is really the foundation that teach me how to actually be able to figure it out, how to solve complex problem, not just at work, but also, in different aspect of my life as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to you and to see if there's any question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation and very, very inspiring. So we do have some questions that are coming in. And so the first one that I want to ask you is, what advice do you have for a girl that's in middle or high school who might be afraid to go into engineering?
So I would say that don't be afraid, because you should at least give it a try, right? And then I would say that because engineering, there are multiple disciplines in engineering, right? I went into chemical engineering myself. There's mechanical engineering, there's electrical engineering. So you should be able to see, what areas of interest you, and you should at least, I would say that one of the things that maybe it is, I don't know whether that they teach you that, to be in engineering, you have to be really good in math and then be able to solve all these complex problems, right? And then I went to calculus and higher level math, right? That I actually went through and then do all the work and then really understand the theory and the concept. But in reality, when I start work, that, there are programs that actually do all the analysis for you. So so really of having you learning how to do all the math and everything is much more of the understanding what's go behind the algorithms of the program. So you actually do not need to go and solve like complex equations that, that is what is presented in the math class. So just think of that eventually that you would have a computer to do that for you. Is really just learning the concept and be able to understand that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And you're talking about all the different avenues of engineering. And I know for myself, I'm mechanical, but my first year as an engineering student, one of the classes I actually took was where we learned about the different types of engineering. And so every week we would go into class and we'd have to do like this short group, like speed design challenge. And we had to like build a tower with index cards, or we had to figure out a pipe thermal fluid problem and program robots one week. And so we were learning about all the different types of engineering. And so if you're unsure, just, take those courses, talk to our mentor, talk to advisors in your high schools or when you go into college. And like she said, don't be afraid. So our next question is, what does your day-to-day job look like?
So it is varying depending on because I work for the company for 20 years. So I have many jobs. And then I think the great thing about Northrop is that, you could actually change your career. Like if you actually do not want to be doing engineering, you could actually go to finance or global supply chain or doing something that is completely different. So I was started with in my career, I actually, a day-to-day would be that early in my career when I first started, I started in the microelectronics area. So that is very similar to Intel. So I was actually in a bunny suit, going in and figuring out how do you actually build semiconductor from scratch. So my day-to-day job was actually went in there doing different design of experiment and then figuring out what is the optimal design for semiconductor. And then afterward, I would present the data to my colleagues and then also to my boss. So that's kind of what I did for the very beginning of my career. And then I would say that like shifting to now, since I manage a portfolio of programs, so my day-to-day job is really trying to making sure that all the programs under me are on schedule and on cost, and also that we meet the technical requirements. So that one piece of it. And the other piece of it, I'm actually working on business development, how to actually bring in new programs for the company. And that piece of it is really trying to figure it out, what products do our customer want, who are our competitors, and at the same time, what is the advocacy plan that we could put in to making sure that we are going to get selected or win for that program. So it's very different from when I first started to where I'm in now.
Absolutely. That's, part of the changes of, gaining more experience and becoming a manager is it definitely changes as a young engineer. I will say that my day-to-day job definitely varies on the phase of the program and where we are in the engineering design process. So are we in that beginning research, identifying the problem, figuring out how we're going to beat our competitors? Or are we, on the manufacturing phase? And if we are, then those days I might be on the floor working with the technicians, making sure that they're, knowing the processes, they're doing it safely, and they're reading the drawings correctly of how we imagined it and how we designed it. So engineering special because it really, changes day to day, and it even changes as you climb up the ladder and you gain experience. So our next question is, what is one of the hardest things about your career?
I think one of the hardest thing about my career is really at this point is more of figuring out, right, because at Northrop Grumman's we built really complex and one of a type system, and sometimes balancing that of how to actually making that affordable so that we could sell more of those systems have been challenging. Of how do you actually design a product that is, a high quality product that is affordable, and then at the same time provide really like high performance. So that's something that is something that I am working through, and then it's have been a challenge for me, myself, and my team.
Absolutely, making sure that we're able to not overpromise and underperform.
That's true.
Right. Okay, so now our next question is, so this is more of a question about education, right? And so, not everybody can necessarily afford to go into, a big university to get that engineering degree right out of high school. So what are the pathways or any alternatives that you can suggest for students that may not be able to or may not be ready to jump into a big university, but still be able to be within STEM?
So, oh, did we lost?
No, we can still hear you. You're good.
Okay, so is my picture like upside down or something?
There you go.
Okay.
Yes, there you are. I
Okay,
don't know
this
what
is good.
happened.
Okay. I was okay. So myself personally, I actually got in student loans, right? Like my parents couldn't pay for my education, so I was on scholarship and student loans. And this is what is great about the US, that you have an opportunity to be able to get an education with the help of our government. And this is why I just jump into engineering. But if there is financial is still a concern, I think that you could actually start off as working for a big defense company, as I would say that rather being an engineer, there's an opportunity to actually go into the factory and then build and test our hardware. And at the same time, you could get on the education reimbursement programs, and then the company would pay a portions of it. And at the same time, you could actually ask an engineer to mentor you to be able to do some of the engineering work and see if you actually like the field. That I would think that that is like a really good way to go about it, because you would actually going to be hands-on, like building and testing our hardware under engineering guidance, and you could learn from them as well.
Great. Yeah, I definitely suggest that as well. I know a lot of the best engineers are the ones that, started as a technician or
Yeah,
something on the manufacturing floor, because they're the ones who are able to look at a design and be like, nope, that's not,
yeah.
we can't make that. Right? They know the equipment the best. So another question is it really important to have a master's or higher education, like a PhD or something?
So I would say that the education to me is really getting you into the door. Being able to get hired as an engineer by a company. So if you were to stay with the same company, I think nowadays that everything is so available on the internet that if you have the motivation, that you could learn everything yourself. And the importance of really, for me, the motivations of going back to get a master's or a PhD is because that now you have to go to class every day, that you have a project to work on and deadlines. So it's really setting the discipline that that you actually would have to force yourself to go do it, rather than trying to learn everything from yourself or from a mentor at work. I think that is the main difference of whether you are self-motivated enough to learn everything yourself, than going back to school and be able to learn from a professor. And for the work that we do at Northrop Grumman, we are actually at the cutting edge of technology. And then all the textbook is actually a couple years or even more behind of what we are actually discovering, at Northrop Grumman's right now, because a lot of our folks that are like writing paper and having patents, that would actually eventually get into the textbook.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another great question we have. How do you find a good mentor?
Okay, so to me, a good mentor is really whether you actually have the chemistry. It is like is a lot like dating, right? Like you could go to speed dating and then see like who would be like, you could actually, like I actually did this myself, right? I actually talked to various people. I didn't really ask them to be my mentor, right? To see that whether we actually have the chemistry, that the personality match up, because you're gonna that there's gonna be a give and take. You kind of have to think about what could you offer your mentor that this person going to teach you, right? So in my case, I actually have mentors in various area. And then one of my, I would say that helped me the most with my career would be a vice president. So she was the vice president of engineering at my company. And so the give and take relationship is that when that she was at that level, she actually do not really know what is everything's that going on. I would say that at the lowest level. So I constantly gave her feedback, how we doing in our areas, what does she need to look into to improve employee engagement, what are we dealing with our customer, how they perceiving us. So those are like what I provided her. And then so she would give me mentorship, of what I need to do with my career, help me actually open the door with networking and then get me into the different position. So I would say that, find somebody that you would love talking to, not just at a professional level, but also like outside of work, that you have that chemistry. That I think, and then the key thing is that, the key thing is really finding somebody that would actually be a champion rather than just being your mentor. So the difference is that a mentor could give you many advice, right? A champion would help you go out of their way of writing a letter of recommendation for you, helping you get into the school that you want, and helping using his or her network to help you get your dream job or getting you into a company. So I think that is the difference between a mentor and a champion. So you want to turn your mentor into a champion.
Absolutely. I know Northrop Grumman is full of great people, and my office mate is not only my mentor, but when I was at City of STEM, I was moderating a panel, and she and some of my coworkers came to help support me and sit through the panel. And so, not just being your mentor at work, but like being your champion in work and in life as well is really important. And Northrop Grumman, has a way of finding those champions when they are hiring. So another question we have is, if you could travel to the past, what would you tell your younger self?
Let's see. I would tell my younger self, I think, is that sometimes like I get very upset over, for example, a project that was unsuccessful that I was on. And at the same time, if I don't get certain promotions or something unsuccessful, right? And then I would stress over it for weeks and be kind of like emotionally sad about everything, right? And I would go back and tell my younger self now is that I believe that things happen for a reason. That, I didn't, something fell, I actually learned from it and be able to improve on the next revisions of that, learning from my failure. And that if I didn't get certain promotions or certain job, it wasn't meant to be in my path. And that it was actually something that is better planned for me. So for example, I was in research and development for a very long time and applied it to many, I would say that manager job. I didn't get it there. But I was able to get jobs that are actually in system engineering that is closer to the customer. So that's how I actually got to where I'm today. If I was still in research and development, it would be a completely different career path for me. So I think if I were to go back to tell my younger self, that I would saying that it's okay, that I don't want to spend the energy to, I think, mope over the things that didn't go the right way.
Yeah, that's a great one. Absolutely. I think for me, if I could go back, I would, just tell myself to believe in myself more and to bet on myself more. I think, looking back, I never would have thought that the girl from, Niceville, Florida would, be working on the programs that she's working on as an engineer, working on the James Webb Space Telescope, doing flight operations. I never would have thought that I would have had that in me. And I know there's so many young girls that feel the same way. And so, just bet on yourself, believe in yourself. It's my main piece of advice. But our next question, and one of our last questions for you, is how did you get into engineering?
I was good in chemistry. It was actually something that I really like in high school, because for me, chemistry and material science is actually physical, like I could see it, right? And also that, I love beauty products, that's all like really in chemistry, that's, create like all this beauty products. And going in chemistry was much more of the path of becoming a chemist, and also that or getting into pre-med and become a doctor. And I think in my situations with my family, that I wanted something that I could actually go in and then be able to get high pay, right? Given that, like, if you look at it, everything that, engineering is one of the highest pay job. So I decided that, I love chemistry, so why don't I do chemical engineering that marry the two together? And then if I decided to go into pre-med or becoming a doctor, I could do so with that degree. It's still a path for me. So that's why I picked chemical engineering. And I didn't realize that chemical engineering have this whole size of that you could actually go in and then build like micro machining semiconductors. Is all about, chemicals of how do you go do that. And then that's what's fascinated me in my senior year. And that's where I end up, working for Northrop Grumman in the microelectronic foundry area.
Awesome. Thank you. I know that I got into engineering because in college I was in Calc 2, and there is this boy who was always asking me for help, and he was kind of cute, I'm not gonna lie. And so I was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I'll help you. And so eventually, I kind of figured out he was just using me. But one day I asked him, I was like, oh, so what's your major? And he was like, mechanical engineering. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know if I can do that. And he just looked at me, he was like, you'd be fine, like you can do it. And I was like, okay. And so I changed my major. But that's how I got into engineering.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and then there's this perception is that, when I first got into engineering, it's like you have to look certain way, act certain way, right? And then I'm like, no, like, like you could still be like beautiful, doing all these other things and not be like stereotypical engineer of like what society thinks, right?
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. Okay, so our last question is, what do you do outside of work?
So I love to move and to exercise, and that release endorphin for me. So outside of work, I do a lot of yoga, Pilates, kickboxing. I think that just make me feel good. I think is that, I think if that I need to be physically strong in order to be able to go in to work and be able to have the mental energy to solve complex problem. And at the same time, I very interested in investment, and trying to read about the different companies. How do we actually? I think it's like a big thing for me as a woman is to how to really be financially independent and not rely on somebody else. And then my mom's always taught me that like you have to be financially independent, and then engineering allowed me to do that, and then now allow me the freedom to be able to invest, right? And then that's something that I enjoy doing. And my other times that I spend with my I have two dogs, so Bella's and Maddie's. One is a golden doodle, and then the other one is a Bernese doodle. So they keeping me active outside of work.
Absolutely. I am so jealous. A golden doodle is my dream dog. I want one so bad. One day, I'm just not there yet.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. They're adorable. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I love talking to you, answering all of these great questions. So with that, I'm going to pass it back off to Anthony so we can wrap up.
Thank you for that. Thank you both, Cassie and Lynn, for putting this on and talking to all of our girls here. So happy and so fortunate to have you both as ambassadors serving on this year's Engaging Girls in STEM event. Just to let you know, girls, if you want more like this, there is also the Southern California American Chemical Society, who's also putting on one more speaking session next week from 4 to 5 p.m. You can go to the Scalus work website there for more information. But more importantly, we just again want to thank Lynn for her exceptional talk for today, Cassie for moderating, and we want to also invite all of you back next year, both Lynn, Cassie, and all of you girls who have not
Yeah.
yet graduated. But we are looking forward to having our in-person Engaging Girls in STEM event. At this event, we have over 300 middle and high school girls meeting live in person, 30, if not more, STEM ambassadors. So you have an opportunity to speak to at least 6 different professional women and about their lives, about their jobs. And again, just thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to having more of these events like this in the future. So please check out our Engaging Girls in STEM website. This recording will actually be on YouTube in the next couple of days. So if you want to share this with your friends, please do so. You can also catch on the Engaging Girls in STEM website, as well as on YouTube, last week's speaker panel with the James Webb Space Telescope crew there as well. And again, Cassie moderating that group, so you'll get to meet more of Cassie and learn more about her as well. So with that, thank you all. Please, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me here at the LA County Office of Education. But again, we look forward to your continued participation in the Engaging Girls in STEM. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.